4 years ago, Resorts World Las Vegas arrived with a $4.3 billion promise to reinvent the Strip. Today, the numbers are a gut punch. Revenue down 22%, earnings down 75%, spring layoffs, and a regulatory penalty so big it nearly set a state record. For a casino built to be untouchable, this collapse raises a question even locals can't ignore. How did the Strip's boldest bet fall apart so fast? Resorts World Las Vegas was built to be untouchable. The numbers say otherwise. In the first quarter of 2025, the resort pulled in $166 million in revenue. That's a staggering drop from $214 million just a year earlier, a 22% plunge in 12 months. The earnings collapse is even more brutal. In the first quarter of 2024, Resorts World posted $40 million in earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. By the first quarter of 2025, that number had shriveled to just $10 million. That's a 75% wipeout, all in the span of a single year. For a property that cost $4.3 billion to build, these aren't just disappointing results. They're catastrophic. This isn't some boutique experiment. This is a 59-story giant with 3,506 rooms, 3 Hilton-branded hotels, and a casino floor stretching 117,000 square feet. The scale is unmatched on the modern Strip. But the promise of a new era has turned into a financial freefall. Every metric that matters is flashing red. Revenue, earnings, occupancy, average daily rate, all down, all at once. The finance team has to answer for numbers like these. There's no hiding from a 75% earnings collapse. The shock inside the building is real. People are worried about their jobs, worried about the future. Billions were spent for this. Yet the numbers don't lie. The fallout from this financial disaster is just beginning to ripple through the resort's halls. The shockwaves from Resorts World's financial collapse didn't just stay on the balance sheet. By spring 2025, nearly 50 employees found themselves out of work, most of them in housekeeping, food service, and frontline roles. These weren't executives or consultants. These were the people who actually kept the place running, the faces guests remembered long after checkout. The mood on the floor turned anxious. Schedules were cut, hours became unpredictable, and workers whispered about who might be next. Some received severance. Dealers and supervisors got what their contracts promised. But for many, especially lower-wage staff, final paychecks lagged behind. Morale slipped as teams shrank and guests grew more frustrated. The layoffs came just weeks after a major regulatory slap from state officials. The details of that penalty were kept vague at first, but everyone knew it was serious. The kind of thing you don't see unless something's gone badly wrong at the top. For the workers, it felt like they were paying the price for mistakes they never made. The sense of instability only deepened as rumors spread about more cuts and tighter oversight. Behind the scenes, regulatory bodies were watching closely, and the company's public statements grew more defensive. The financial pain was real, but the human cost was just as obvious. What happened next would reveal just how deep the problems went, and who was really responsible for letting things get this far. The $10.5 million fine from the Nevada Gaming Commission landed like a hammer. This wasn't a slap on the wrist. It was the second largest penalty in state history, and every dollar traced back to a breakdown in basic casino oversight. For nearly 2 years, Resorts World's own compliance team flagged suspicious activity tied to Matthew Bowyer, a known illegal bookmaker. Bowyer and his wife, Nicole, moved almost $8 million through the casino, with transactions large enough to trigger federal reporting requirements. But the required suspicious activity reports were never filed. Internal emails show compliance staff raising alarms, but upper management, more interested in keeping big spenders happy, looked the other way. Surveillance and cage staff logged the cash, but no one escalated the issue to regulators. The result? A resort that welcomed high rollers with criminal records, ignored federal anti-money laundering rules, and left the door wide open for regulatory disaster. This wasn't a one-off mistake. It was a pattern, one that regulators finally called out and the company paid dearly for. The fallout from the fine didn't just hit the bottom line, it shattered trust inside the building and across the Strip. The Super Bowl in February 2024 brought a surge to Resorts World that looked unstoppable. For one weekend, the place felt like the beating heart of Las Vegas. Packed tables, sold-out rooms, and a cash flow that made the finance team breathe easy. The casino's first quarter numbers rode that wave. $214 million in revenue, $40 million in earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, and occupancy north of 89%. Management pointed to the Super Bowl as proof that their massive investment was finally paying off. But the celebration was short-lived. As soon as the crowds cleared, business dropped off a cliff. March and April saw traffic dry up, gaming hold percentages fall, and the buzz on the floor fade fast. The quarter's headline numbers masked a brutal reality. The Super Bowl wasn't a new normal, it was a one-off spike. Instead of building momentum, Resorts World got caught flat-footed by the sudden drop. What looked like a turning point turned out to be calendar luck, and the hangover hit hard. The numbers that followed would make it clear this wasn't just a blip. It was the start of a long, painful slide. Hotel occupancy at Resorts World tells its own story. In the first quarter of 2025, just 82.3% of rooms were filled. That's down from 89.1% during the same stretch last year. On paper, that might sound like a small dip. But for a place built to run at full tilt, losing nearly 7 percentage points is a red flag management can't ignore. The pain doesn't stop there. Average daily rates dropped from $298 to $274, a $24 haircut on every room every night. That's millions in lost revenue, week after week. For hotel revenue managers, these numbers are the nightmare scenario. Fewer guests, lower rates, and empty rooms that still cost money to clean, cool, and staff. Discounts and deals haven't filled the gap. Instead, the property is both emptier and cheaper than ever before. When a resort built for blockbuster crowds starts leaking demand this fast, it's a sign the problems go deeper than just a slow weekend or two. The cracks are showing, and the north end of the Strip isn't helping matters. The north end of the Strip has a reputation even the boldest casino developers can't shake. This is where legends used to stand. The Stardust closed its doors in 2007, leaving behind empty lots and faded memories. Echelon Place tried to rise from those ashes, but the 2008 recession stopped it cold, leaving only steel skeletons and broken promises. Resorts World gambled $4.3 billion that things would be different this time, but foot traffic still lags far behind the center strip. Urban planners warned for years, this stretch is a graveyard for big dreams. No matter how much you spend, geography doesn't bend to ambition. Guests expecting Vegas glamour instead found themselves wandering a mall that felt more like an airport terminal. Sterile, sterile, echoing, and nothing like the Strip's classic buzz. The much-hyped food hall kiosks, meant to modernize dining, rejected orders so often that frustrated visitors gave up and paid extra for sit-down meals. Then came the safety nightmare. On February 17, 2025, a guest in room 28,412 reached under their bedside table and got shocked by an exposed live wire. Maintenance logs show this wasn't the first report, but short-staffed crews didn't get to it until after the incident went viral. Trust, once lost, is hard to win back, especially when a $4.3 billion resort can't guarantee basic safety. Leadership didn't just shuffle the deck, they flipped the table. Alex Dixon stepped in as CEO in January, joined by a board featuring Jim Murren and, in a twist only Vegas could deliver, Brian Sandoval, the same former governor who once chaired the commission that fined them. By summer, Resorts World became the first major Strip resort to waive resort fees, a move that screamed desperation as Strip occupancy slid to 66.7%. The company points to an 8% revenue bump in the second quarter, but that's still 18% below last year. They call it a steady recovery. The numbers say otherwise. In just 1 year, Resorts World's revenue fell 22% and earnings dropped 75%, despite being the most expensive resort ever built on the Strip. The $10.5 million fine from Nevada regulators in March 2025 was not just a headline. It exposed deep compliance failures, from unchecked high rollers to ignored anti-money laundering warnings. Guest complaints about faulty kiosks and even dangerous exposed wires show that problems went far beyond the boardroom. Leadership churned, with Alex Dixon taking over as CEO and a new board stacked with former gaming regulators. Yet even as management promises a steady recovery, second quarter 2025 revenue remains 18% below the previous year, and strip-wide occupancy is sliding. Some records, like the full details of internal compliance audits, remain undisclosed, leaving open questions about how deep the problems go. What's clear is this: $4.3 billion in flashy technology couldn't overcome old mistakes. For Las Vegas, Resorts World is a reminder that location, trust, and basics still matter more than hype.